Hey everybody, welcome to Bare Metal Gaming episode 9. I'm one of your hosts here, Tim, and I'm joined here by the guy from the left of me. That's all I got. I was going to try and do something like one of your best coast things or whatever.
Yeah. You just don't have the magic I've got.
I don't.
It's okay. Not everybody can be me, radio superstar, podcast phenomenon.
Yeah. Podcast chameleonaire. Hey, what's your name? You never said it.
It's Andrew, everybody.
Whoa,
hello.
my God, it's Andrew. Andrew's here.
Yeah. Feels good, man.
I know. Well, it's been a while since we've done this. It was actually God, it was almost a month ago. It was actually almost a month ago, exactly.
Yeah.
Because we released our the last of the horror episodes, and that was our Halloween themed thing that went on for a long time throughout the month of October.
Yeah. We started that first episode, actually went online in the end of September, if memory serves.
Yep. And here we are, the end of November, and we're talking about Christmas stuff. We're in the gauntlet, right? This is what I refer to as the holiday gauntlet. And there really isn't much we could talk about as far as Thanksgiving related things.
Right. Well, I guess we could talk about Black Friday, but we don't have to.
We could. I mean,
I don't really have any great gaming related stories from Black Friday. I've got some years of retail under my belt. I've got Black Friday stories, just not really gaming stories.
Oh yeah, no, me too. I mean, well, I say I have Black Friday stories, but I mean, like yourself, I worked in retail for just way too long. Like I wasted way too much of my my late teens and mid and early to mid 20s doing that shit. I don't have any like really distinct like Black Friday stories. Just general like horrible holidays, like just general horrible retail stories, not holiday stories.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, I have some holiday stories too, probably, but that was always the worst time though. It really was.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Like it was never Black Friday specifically. It was just the holidays in general. People they're just awful. People are just awful.
Yeah.
And it never made sense to me.
People get shittier on the holidays when they go to retail. So that's why, like, I feel like, how in some countries it's like mandatory that you turn 18. Okay. You are drafted to the military, minimum of like 2 years service. Right. I feel like we should have it so that you turn 18, you must work 2 years retail. And that way, unless you have a short memory, you won't be shitty to retail and service workers.
Right. Just so you appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, it's tough. Retail was the worst. We should talk about retail then really quick.
Sure.
We don't have a ton of stuff. I don't know. All of my absolute worst retail memories. And I've had a lot of retail jobs. I mean, I'll go down the list really quick. I mean, my first retail job was in 97. I worked at a video store, not a rental store, a purchase store. I think I talked about this in the show previously.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a chain called Saturday Matinee on the East Coast. And they sold VHS and then Laserdisc and then later DVD came into the mix as well. And that was interesting because I don't know. That wasn't like a terrible job, right? I don't really have memories of that being an awful job.
Yeah.
But from there, I got a job in. That's where I went to. I was seasonal for that, so I got let go, and then I went to go work in a comic shop. And again, like not bad at all. My only negative of that entire experience was the owner, who was a friend of mine, right? Like he got to the point where it's like times were a little tough, and he was just like, "Hey, I can't pay you your paycheck from last week, but I can pay you in comics." And I'm like,
"No,
dude, no, what?"
Yeah,
like, I love comics. Don't get me wrong, but
right.
I mean, you're telling me that like the last 40 hours you're gonna pay me in fucking comic books? I'm like, I'm pretty sure my insurance company is not gonna take comics as a payment for what little bills I had. I mean, and plus, you're working for like absolute minimum wage, late 90s minimum wage, no less.
Right.
Like what was it, like $6.75 or something like that?
Probably,
so,
yeah.
That's a bad spot. That was then what's funny is I went back to the video store after about about a year or so, and then I started. That's when I got the job in the video game arcade. That's where all my terrible. That's where all my horror stories come from. Of like, and I've told this. I've told this on other podcasts. There's a podcast a friend of mine hosts, Arcade Radio, and he had me on their first episode because he's like, we used to work in an arcade. He's like, come on and tell stories about arcades. I'm like, I don't think I have the kind of stories that the people that listen to this show want to hear, right? Because they're all hot on like, oh, arcades are great, and they have like arcade machines in their house, and they're like, they remember the heyday. And all I remember from working in an arcade is like kids pissing on the floor, and like, this one guy like literally like we found like human shit on the floor one day.
Oh my god!
In front of the police trainer arcade game.
Oh god!
And it was like, and that kind of shit. It was just like that. Like that's all my fucking memories of like that job. Like I don't have any. There's no magical thing where I'm gonna be like, oh, and then I got to lay my hands on the inside of a House of the Dead, Sega Megalo cabinet. And I'm like, yeah. I mean, I did that, but it kind of gets eclipsed by the piss and shit aspects of it.
That's too bad that that's what stands out for you rather than like stories like oh, my friends came and I turned everything to free play and we played until 3 a.m. that night.
Well, we did that sometimes. Well, it was in a mall, so we couldn't stay open that late. But we had times where we after hours we would just sit there and play games.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously, I didn't own the joint. But I mean, there's a lot of weird. I don't know what it is. Like it's like all of my memories are just like they coalesce into this one job. Like we had a regional manager, the chain we worked for. She was from Vermont. The chain was out of Boston, but she lived in Vermont, and we were kind of on her loop. Mm-hmm. And we found out later on that she was like embezzling money and like stealing from us.
Oh no,
that was so messed up. Oh yeah. And then I got a hernia moving the Sega Wave Race machine because they wouldn't hire anybody else. Like so, there was just like one person at a time on a shift, and they had said they wanted that machine moved, and like. I'm a dumb 20-year-old. I'm like, I'll move it.
Trying to do it by yourself?
Yeah.
Oh, son.
Yeah, a lot of weird. God, what a weird time.
Wow, how irresponsible of them to be like, just make one of the young kids will probably drag it over there somehow.
But, and that's part. I look back on it, and I'm like, that's what kills me about that place is like, you give people that age. Like 19, 20 years old, any level of responsibility of running something like that. And then like, they're like surprised when shit goes completely wrong. Right. Like I remember there was a, God, that got me in a roll with this. And there was we used to do birthday parties, right? Like parents could come in and do birthday parties, and no one ever did it. Like, once in a blue moon, you'd get like a parent that's like, oh, my little Bobby's gonna have his birthday party here, and they schedule it. And then there was one morning I came in and I was completely by myself, and this woman walks up at the counter and she's like, I'm here for my son's birthday party. And it was like just the one kid. And it was his birthday party. And I look back on him just like I was like 19. I didn't give a fuck. And I'm like, oh God, it was just awful, man. What a
like he was there by himself with just his mom and no friends.
Yeah.
And that was the party.
Yeah, that was the party. And I had no idea this was even happening. Like I had no idea that there was like a birthday party that day. There was no one else there, and it's like 10 o'clock in the morning on like a fucking Tuesday.
What did she expect? Were you supposed to have like decorations out or?
Yeah. So yeah. Well, I remember it just completely went to shit, and I remember like specifically that God, what was it? She was really disappointed in how like lackluster it all was. I'm like, here's your tokens. She ended up calling the manager, and I do remember I got yelled at pretty hard for that. They didn't fire me because they didn't have anybody else that was willing to do that fucking job.
But if you didn't even know there was going to be a party, that it seems like a real real bad oversight on the part of the management in the first place to not make sure that their employees are informed of an event, like a rare special event. I imagine to have something like that, she would have like paid up front for, a set amount of tokens or something like that, right? It's something. Otherwise she could just like bring the kid in and be like, here you go, Billy, here's $10. Go nuts,
Yeah, it was pretty crap. I don't know. Yeah. I'm dusting off brain cells here, and it's just that's I don't
Sure.
have a
A
ton
little
of I don't
fuzzy.
have a ton of recall on it,
It's like
but
20 years ago now. So what are you gonna do?
yeah, God, more than that at this point, isn't it? Jeez, no, about 20 years. Yeah, God,
Yeah.
we're old. We're old.
Well,
Oh,
since we're talking retail here, I'll just delve in real quick. I don't remember if I've talked about my Funcoland time on the show before. I might have
uh,
touched on that.
I don't remember you talking about Funcoland with me at all.
Oh wow, okay. I'm almost wondering if, since you also have video game store experience, if we should do a separate episode another time about working in those places. But I've got some stories to tell there. I was going to touch on Black Friday from the perspective of a sporting goods store employee, not necessarily Funcoland.
Yeah,
But since I haven't talked about Funcoland, maybe we'll save that for another time. I'm sorry, listeners. I know I
yeah. I
hate
mean,
it.
I used to work at Electronics Boutique.
Yeah,
Funny enough, at the same time as I was working at the arcade full time, I would get done with my shift at the arcade and I would go work part time at Electronics Boutique, which was right next door in the mall.
sure.
Yeah, a
Well,
lot better
hell,
memories of that place.
do we just talk about that now? Do I
Yeah, why
rather
not?
than
Why
like
not?
tease
Why
our
not?
poor
It's
listeners?
tis the season, right?
Yeah,
It's Black Friday season. Everybody's buying shit.
sure. Holiday
Uh,
shopping season. Here's your
yeah,
retail
why
story.
not? Yeah. So
Okay.
let's hear about Funcoland. Come on.
Okay. So Funcoland was I think the second job I ever had. And it was right around the time that GameStop had bought them out, and they were merging into the same company, right? And the store, the signage outside of our store still said Funcoland and everything, but there was a GameStop across the street in the big mall, and we could like call over there and see if they had a game that somebody was looking for, and they would do vice versa and that kind of stuff, right? So we kind of worked together. They would sometimes share employees between the two stores, but I only worked at the Funcoland. And what you said a few minutes ago about like anytime you give responsibility to somebody like late teens, early 20s, and don't be surprised if it's run poorly. That is that should be like etched in stone at like the fucking on the curb in front of the Funcoland where I used to work. Right, it's not even there anymore. I guess now it's probably like, I don't know, Jamba Juice or fucking who knows. I think.
Or nail salon or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think the last time I saw it was maybe a store that sold tea and that kind of stuff. So,
Then it's definitely a vape shop now.
oh yeah, good call. But yeah, so we had a whole staff run. The whole store was run by guys who were in their late teens, aside from the manager. The manager was in his early 20s, and he was just a complete fuck up. Everybody there was. I mean, like, we tried to do right by people for the most part, but like none of us gave a shit about selling those cleaning systems.
And that's the killer about any retail like that. Like nobody gives a fuck.
No,
Like you're paid minimum wage.
yeah,
Like you're not going to go above and beyond. It's not a career.
yeah, no, certainly not. And it's like they don't. This was the rule that I'll talk about this later, but I used to work at a sporting goods store, and I was a manager of a department, and I had about a dozen people working under me for a little while. This was in like my early and mid 20s, and over half of them were high school kids. And my general rule of thumb for handling them was just be happy that they show up on time and don't steal anything, right?
Right. Right.
And that should be, I feel like every retail place that employs any kids who are in high school or just out of it, like, you should live and die by that code, and that's where your expectations ought to be. But yeah, we didn't care about selling like those cleaning kits, because back then, if you're a younger listener and you don't remember the days of Funcoland and cleaning kits and stuff, what they would have are these console cleaning kits, right? For like your Nintendo 64 or your PlayStation. It would be a disc that would have like tiny little bristles on the bottom of it, and they would give you like a bottle of some kind of solution that you'd, well, just gently dip one of these brushes in it, and then put the disc in your PlayStation and let it play, and that'll clean your whole system.
Yeah. And we know now that actually did. It was snake oil. It didn't do anything.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And they were expensive too. They were like 20 or $30 for one of those dumbass kits, but they were like pure profit for the store, right? And so that there was, rules in place. Like, they wanted you to sell X amount of those things in order to like maintain your your hours and, or just a job in general at some stores. But ours was so fucking lax. It just didn't matter. I don't think any of us tried to move them except for this one kid. There's like, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 cut ups, and then the store manager, and then the one good kid who tried really hard,
Yeah,
right?
there's always that one kid that's like actually trying to do the job.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I always try to do right by the customer, right? Like I at least have that to my credit. I never tried to like screw people over or give them bad advice or anything, right? And like I would love it when like parents who had no fucking idea what they were doing would come in and ask me for my advice because I would
Oh
always
yeah.
try to set them
Yeah.
straight, But this one kid was trying to do everything by the company book. And so that meant like selling as many cleaning kits as possible, right? Like trying to sell a used game over a new one and all of that stuff, right? All of
Oh, I
the
could save you
practices.
25 cents. It's got a lot of scratches, but that means it's been used. It's quality.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
game's gonna work.
Yeah, yeah. Somebody else has already gone through the trouble of making sure that this works, is what that is. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, this one kid, he was a really nice kid too. And one of like the troublemakers at the store. We had like one kid who he was like DJing on the side, or so he said. I never like saw him doing it. I never went to one of his things, but he was like the kid with like the long hair, and he was like too cool for school always, and like you just like he was like he was off of a 90s sitcom, like he could answer everything with like whatever, you know.
It was the 90s. We were innocent.
Yeah, yeah, totally. But he talked the good kid into trying to jump over the counter just like through peer pressure one day. And he was like, hey, you can't jump over this counter. And the nice kid was like heavy set too. He was like two of me, I know none of it was muscle. And he was, just getting kind of baited into it. And, God bless him. He just like couldn't help himself. He was like, I'll show you, I can do it. And he got a good running start and he tried to make it over the counter and he like got sort of halfway over, but he got a big old split up the bottom of his pants and, his underwear were showing. He had to go home. He was like done because his pants were just a mess after that.
And you guys were adult enough to not tease him relentlessly about it, right?
oh yeah, absolutely, yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, like I'm sure they're probably still telling that story somewhere around there. Like the kid at the Funcoland that used to be there who ripped his pants at one day. It was in the winter too because I only worked these jobs. I was doing bike racing already at that point. Well, I had been for years, I guess, but I was only working basically from like September until probably February every year, maybe March, because it was off season in Wisconsin. There's ice on the roads, right? And you can't really ride your bike out there a whole hell of a lot.
Right.
So there's no races and stuff either. So yeah, that was the time of the year that I would get a part-time job for a little while. And so it's winter time, of course. Kid rips his pants and has to go home, but it's also in the thick of the holiday traffic and stuff, right? So yeah, I I just remember him walking out the door with a hand behind him, holding his split pants together as he like held the door open for the customer that was going into the store on his way out.
Don't forget to buy your cleaning kit.
Right.
Oh, bad
Good
person.
times. Yeah. The only other thing I have to say about that place is that store manager was I mentioned earlier that he was a total slack ass. He used to be scheduled. I would come in, I think, at like noon or 1 every day, and I would be there until close. I was one of the key holders for the store. And he was supposed to come in a little bit after me and like stay all the way till close and kind of be my support a lot of the time, right? I swear, dude, he would roll in at like 4 and then hang out and play Tony Hawk on the demo station until like 5 or 6 and then just cut out for the night and just be like, I'm out. Just all the time. He just like totally screwed me all the time. He had to like, I guess this is probably worth pointing out too. I have no idea what the practices are for closing the store now, but back then, if you were key, you had to count all of the used games in the store just to like record what the
Really?
quantities were.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
That's crazy.
They have those drawers where all of the games were in paper sleeves and everything, right? The discs and stuff. And then like the carts were out of their boxes and stuff, right? Everything just in drawers. So you'd have to open every single drawer and count the number of discs, the number of carts, and all that stuff, and record it and leave it in the safe along with like the take for the day and all that stuff. And then actually, I must have some of that's off because I guess I remember making bank drop offs. I don't know if that was every night or if that was like once a week or what.
Well,
but yeah,
I mean, I can say like all the retail jobs I had, you made the bank drop offs every night, and two people had to go.
Oh, okay. Oh God, no, I did that alone.
Oh wow, yeah. No, we had it was the policy at every place I ever worked was like two people had to go, because one person was sit in the car and watch the other person go inside.
Oh sure, yeah, no, that makes
again,
sense.
you're trusted teenagers with money.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that makes total sense. That's just not what my slack ass store did, you know? Everything about that place was just like so ridiculous. Oh, and I feel like I've definitely told this before on the show. Forgive me if I haven't, but I got the store manager back, kind of at the expense of the convenience of some of our customers. I apologize for that. But when the PlayStation 2 launched, they wouldn't let employees buy any of them. They had to all be for customers and stuff. And I don't remember what it was like, in terms of like pre-orders at other stores like Best Buy or whatever. Or like if you even had a chance to buy one in advance. There we go. Can't talk tonight. But I remember going to Best Buy the morning of the PS2 launch and getting in line, and there was like, I don't know, 100 people in line, maybe more than that. And I was somewhere near the end of the line, but I got a ticket for one. And I just remember sitting in that line, waiting to get in there and get my PS2, and my time to go clock in at Funco totally came and went. I rolled into the store like an hour later than when I was supposed to. It was freaking packed with customers, of course, right? All waiting for their PS2s. Store manager just gives me this look like, I'm going to kill you because I was so late, and I was just like, well, payback for all those nights you let me close alone, douchebag. Yeah. I did not care about inconveniencing those people as much as I cared about getting a PS2 at launch, unfortunately. So, yeah. Yeah, I guess that's all my Funko stories.
It wasn't very many. Yeah, I don't know. Like when I worked at Electronics Boutique, I'm trying to think. Like I was there. That was the tail end of the PlayStation era. So like N64 was out, and with all of these jobs, I should note like I grew up near a military base.
Mm-hmm.
So specifically, it was like Fort Drum, New York, and we were the big town that was near the base. So it was a constant flow of soldiers that were done with work for the day, and they'd go to the mall. And growing up in a military town, one of the things you quickly realize is most of these people, they're the same as you, right? They're just young, and they have this fucking job that they've been either it was like for a lot of them it was like, well, I can either go to jail because I'm a shitbag criminal, or I can do something with myself and join the military, and that's just it, right? So like you had a lot of people that were just they weren't savory individuals that you wanted to know, and
Sure.
they would come to this mall and just be just fuckheads, and they would treat people like fuckheads all the time. And they would come into the stores and just like mess with employees and everything else. And the thing about the video store, so the video store was different in that there was they would, like, a lot of guys would come in, and we had a big anime section, because myself and a lot of people that worked in the store, we had ultimate control over a lot of what the store carried.
Okay.
So we would get in. Your blockbusters, like we'd get in the giant display of like Titanic, dual VHS tapes, going back to the video store.
Sure.
But at the same time, we were big fans of like Hong Kong cinema. So we had like a huge Hong Kong cinema section and a huge anime section. And the soldiers would eat that up, and they would come in. You always knew when it was the first of the month, because that's when they got paid. It was on the first of the month. You'd have these soldiers that were like barely 19, 20 years old. They would come in and just buy stacks of videotapes. And then they and just drop, like, it was nothing to just drop like $200 on like a stack of La Blue Girl or some garbage like that,
Stocking up for the month.
Yeah. And what's funny is we also took trade-ins on VHS tapes.
Oh,
to sell
interesting.
them back to us. And we actually had a book, and I can't remember for the life of me what the book was called, but it was almost like a phone book, and you looked up the movie by title, and it had what we sold it new for,
Hmm.
if you wanted to order it, and then it was like what we would give you, what we would pay for it if you wanted to trade it back in. And like it was almost like clockwork. Like at the beginning of the month, you'd get these people buying stacks of VHS tapes, and at the end of the month, a lot of times it was the same guy bringing those tapes back because they watched them all, and they're like, I don't care anymore, it was just all
Yeah,
disposable income to them.
sure.
Um, and then take that same thing to the video game store as well. You'd have guys just buying stacks of video games. And because we were Electronics Boutique, we did take trade-ins, and they'd come right as soon as they beat the game, they'd come in and trade them in. Uh,
Yeah, that was. Sorry, I was just gonna say
no, it's fine. Yeah,
that was huge
it
back
was. Yeah,
then too.
it really was, and that's how I got a lot of my games.
Hmm.
Because you'd get these guys that would be like they'd buy, like, and here's the crazy part. Someone would buy a game, and then they would bring it back, and the policy was is that if it wasn't, what was it, if it wasn't in the system, we gave you $1 for it. And I'm trying to remember,
Okay,
like I got a lot of games that way. And this I got a lot of Genesis games this way. And this was
sure.
again late '90s. So you'd get people being like, they'd bring in like their Sega Genesis collection, and they'd be like, "Oh, I want to trade these in." And we'd be like, "Well, we don't have these in the system, but I can give you $1 per game."
Hmm.
Um, or in some cases, like we would get like NES games in, and we'd be like, "We don't take these as trade in," and they would just leave them.
Oh, sure.
Uh, and they were supposed to hit the dumpster, and I'm proud to say a lot of them didn't. Most of them didn't. I
Hey,
mean, I know I
all,
personally took great pride in putting more than my fair share of copies of Glover for the N64 into the trash compactor, but stuff like Legend of Zelda never hit it.
that's awesome, man. That's. I
Yeah.
mean, if I can interject real quick here, that was a thing at Funcoland too. Was they would just throw shit away all the time,
Oh,
like
it's
packaging
heartbreaking.
for games and stuff
Yeah.
too. Yeah, and to know like especially the NES stuff that you're talking about, right? Like there was a time when that stuff was kind of worthless, and now people would love to have it. And it's like, man, it's a good thing that there were people out there who, like you, who just saved that stuff from the trash compactor
Yeah, and
because
we weren't supposed to, but at the same time, it's like, when I worked at the video game store or the video stores, we threw out a lot of VHS tapes. I would make a point, because you had to. I don't know if you. I was in a mall, so like you had to load up the cart and then walk it down to the trash compactors. And I always just made a point of like to just park my car down by the trash compactors.
sure.
See, they didn't give. They honestly they didn't give a fuck as long as the
Hmm.
stuff was gone. You know,
Hmm.
it wasn't even really stealing. It was just like, all right, you want to take our garbage home, go for it.
And sure,
Yeah.
you
And
didn't
I
even
will
have
say,
to
just
bother.
just to just to make it sad and somber, one of the other things about in a military town, we'd have times where guys would bring in like a whole console, like they would bring in like their PlayStation and just like a mountain of games,
Hmm.
and they we'd be because it's trade in stuff, so we're like, oh, thanks for your PlayStation and your 14,000 games, here's $25 of store credit,
Sure.
or we can give you $10 in cash. And a
Yeah.
lot of times they take the cash. And and one of the memories that does stick with me is that, there's a guy who came in, and a couple of guys, and they brought in a bunch of PlayStation stuff, and they were trading it in. And we're like, yeah, well, it's like you gotta, like, we can do like $250 in store credit, or I can give you like 150 cash or whatever.
Hmm.
And they took the cash, and they told us, they're like, yeah, buddy ours got deployed, got killed, and this is his stuff, and we're selling it so we can send the money back to his mom. And we're just like,
Oh,
fuck.
that sucks.
And it's sad, it's sad to say, we saw that a lot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
Um,
I can imagine. Yeah.
yeah, and it was fucking crazy because it's like, I look back on it now. I look back on it now as a guy who's coming up on 40, and it's like, it's fucking, it's like it's like these kids. It's crazy to think about. I didn't think anything of it at the time. It was like, well, I mean, obviously it was like, oh Jesus, that's it's fucking terrible. Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Uh, but looking back on it now, I'm like, God, what a fucking tragedy.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So there's my sombering moment for the night. You're welcome.
Hope you're all feeling good out there in
Yeah.
Radio Land.
Bare Metal Gaming, the feel good podcast.
Yeah, right. Uh, I okay. One more. This one maybe you'll laugh at because it's just kind of Looney Tunes in nature. We'll lift your spirits a bit here. It won't do much for your, I guess, faith in humanity though. But when I worked at the sporting goods store I mentioned, I was there on Black Friday one time, and this place, this is Wisconsin, right? So it gets cold. Every place, every like big business has a set of double doors. Right, you walk through one door, there's like a little entryway, and then there's the next door. And in that entryway, they've usually got like the heater just blasting, right?
Oh
Or
yeah,
something like that.
yeah. This is interesting. I think this is something that's uniquely Midwestern.
Mm-hmm.
Where you have the double sets of doors. You have the airway between doors. You
Yeah.
have the outside door, and then you have the inside door to regulate temperature.
Mm-hmm.
That is a cold climate thing.
Yeah, totally. We have in that section for this store, in that little entryway section, there was a metal, like fence gate that would come down. And it wasn't like, not like cyclone fencing, but like the kind where it's like the horizontal bars that are kind of
yeah. I worked in a mall. That's
yeah. I know what you're talking. I know that you know what I'm talking about.
Right. I forgot we have listeners. Yes,
Yeah.
For them.
Trying to kind of describe for them, but yeah, just like I don't know, alternating 6-inch horizontal bars, right? So if you can imagine, it's really flexible and everything, right? But that would come down and kind of block off the entryway so that nobody could just walk into the store once we got in there and started setting up for the day and everything, right? So Black Friday, it's obviously cold in Wisconsin at this point. Temperature, I would guess probably like 30 something, but people are pressed up against this metal gate that's down there in the entryway, and of course the crowd spills outside past the outside doors into the parking lot and stuff too, right? So everybody's waiting to get in, and they hit the power button to open that thing up, and it gets about a foot off the ground, and people are sliding on their bellies underneath it to get in.
Really?
Oh yeah, they bust through that inside door and then just start taking off into the store for stuff. And I always tell this story when I talk about Black Friday with people, but we had these.
You just jogged my memory of a Black Friday story too, but I'll finish, please.
Okay, good. So we had these gloves for sale. They were kind of like Gore-Tex gloves, right? Heavy winter gloves for somebody to wear, like if you're gonna like shovel snow or go snowboarding or skiing or something, right? And I think they were really cheap. They were like maybe $20, which is pretty good for a pair of gloves like that. It's not like fire sale prices, but like that's pretty good. And we had an end cap, and I don't think the store was expecting them to be like gangbusters, completely sold out in minutes, but that's what they were. People were there just for those gloves because I guess we had them in our newspaper ad, which is another thing to date us with.
Yeah, right. People were murdering each other for gloves.
Yeah. But they would come in and they cleaned out that end cap where we had them. And I just remember the store manager being blown away that they were all gone. Like seriously, within probably like the first 10 minutes of the store being open, maybe 5 minutes. It seemed really quick, right? So he's like, we need somebody to get the extra gloves that we had just stashed in the receiving area, like I guess get those out here now and they'll go and, then we'll be out. So I was like, yeah, I'm not doing anything. Okay. Cause I worked in the service shop, right? So it wasn't like I was at the ready, but I wasn't like a salesperson on call ready to like answer questions and shit. So I go get the box of gloves and, like if you were to set it on the ground, it's probably about like thigh height. Right. And like, I don't know, 4 feet wide, like a bigger box, but not so big that I couldn't carry it even with all the gloves in there. And I come out from the back with that thing and I start walking down the aisle toward the end cap, and I don't make it to the end cap because people realize what I've got in that box. And they just start running up and pulling gloves out of my box as I'm carrying it. And I can like kind of barely see over the top of the box, right? So they're just like pulling shit out, pulling gloves out. And I just stop walking and I'm just standing there holding the box for a minute, like waiting for it to kind of stop, for people to stop like running up and pulling out gloves. And seriously, like a minute later, I'm standing there with a partly shredded box. And then, like another minute later, like one of the seams is completely busted. Like the gloves have spilled out onto the floor. I'm standing there holding like a kind of shredded box with some gloves in it. I just felt like like Wile E. Coyote or something after the dynamite accidentally went off. You know what I mean? Like just kind of like, wow, didn't expect that. And they were just like ravenous about grabbing these things.
God, it's so weird. Yeah.
And nobody saw it coming, like the store wasn't like, now everybody be ready to move these gloves. It was just like, oh wow, bigger seller than we had anticipated. So
gloves are the big thing.
Yeah,
gloves are the future of the business.
These were space aged gloves. Okay, so your story, I jogged your memory.
Oh yeah. So I worked at a mall, and obviously, Black Friday, we had to be there. And I was working. Yeah, this had to be when I was working at like the arcade or whatever. Because I'm remembering like where I was parked at. So it's Black Friday. You got to be there super early. And I should say that. So I worked in the arcade, and then attached to the arcade was, so the arcade, the overall business was called Record Town, and it was owned by a company called Transworld Entertainment, and it's since become FYE.
Yeah, I was gonna say I recognize that name.
Yeah, so there's still a couple of them out there, and that store eventually became an FYE, but not while I was there. So it was called Record Town, and so it had a CD/video store attached to it, and owned by the same company as the video store I worked at before. And so obviously it's Black Friday. We had to get there like something crazy, like 5:30 in the morning. And there was this one year where I got there so early, and it had snowed all night. And obviously anybody who's lived in a snow state knows, like, yeah, it snows. You can't see the lines in a parking lot. You just kind of
Nope.
have to guess, right? And we get to the mall so damn early in the morning that like they haven't plowed yet. So I just kind of put my car wherever. Like I get there, and there's a couple people that had already parked, and I'm like, well, I guess I'll just park in line with them, and hopefully that's in a spot. And did you hear that? Because I didn't want to go get the dog.
No, I did hear that. I just unplugged
okay.
my microphone so I could yell at them, and
so
in the show.
Oh, it's fine. So I park my car, and I go inside, and I'm at work, and then like it was like around 10:30 in the morning or so. Mall security guard comes in and says, "Hey, are you license plate blah 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 blah?" And I'll tell you, it's funny, like looking back on it, like I knew right away. It's like, yeah, that's me. And like now I'm like, I couldn't tell you my license plate number to save my life. Why do I not know that?
Sure.
But anyway, I was like, yeah, it's me. They're like, yeah, you're you can't be parked the way you are. I'm like, what are you talking about? And I go out there, and apparently I was like wildly out of the lines, right? And the other people that were there, they had already left. And so I'm like this person that like some other person had parked behind me, and by then the snow had kind of melted so you could see the lines. So the person that parked behind me was in the lines, and then someone came and parked behind them. So I was like, the mall security was like ready to tow my shit. They're like, you're parked in the middle of the lane, you're blocking somebody in. And I walk out there, and I'm like, shit. I'm trying to explain to them like why it's like that. I'm like, I've been inside working all day. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And I get outside, and there's this fucking guy standing by the door, this older guy, and it's like he was just waiting for me to walk out, and he sees me walk out with the security guards, and he immediately starts walking up to me and being like, "Why'd you park like that? Why'd you park like that? You can't park like that. You can't park like that." And I turn around, I'm like, dude, it wasn't like this when I got here. And he's yelling at me. He's hot. He wants to like fucking fight me. And then I'm like, I keep saying like, dude, you need to back off. I'm like, when I got here this morning, there was no cars in this lot. I parked. I didn't do this to people. Like people parked behind me. And like I swear this guy was gonna take a fucking swing at me, and he's screaming at me. The mall cops are walking with me to my vehicle to make sure I fucking move it.
Right.
And right when I get in my car, like and it sucks because I'm like, I have to like fucking brush and scrape my car off because it was snowing while I was in there too, And sure, he's fucking screaming at me. And it suddenly clicked in this guy's head. He just stopped mid-sentence, and he goes, "Oh, I understand what you're saying." And he just like left me alone. and
Idiot
I
weirdo.
moved my fucking car and went on with my day. Yeah, that's the memory you jogged.
Awesome. Wow. Another feel good memory from our buddy Tim here on the show.
Seriously, man, fuck people. Fuck people when they're in like shitty consumer mode. Fuck all of you. God.
Uh,
20
okay.
fucking
Yeah.
years 20 fucking years ago that still stings, I swear.
Yeah. No, I would remember that too. Yeah. I don't think I ever got chewed out quite like that in retail. I watched like a manager above me get yelled at by somebody because the store, this is a different sporting goods store, was selling really crappy dual suspension mountain bikes for like $100. And he bought one and like the plastic crank arm fell off and he was hot about it. And it's like, what do you want, dude? It's $100 dual suspension mountain bike.
Yeah,
It's
right.
probably not even able to realistically hold your body weight on that thing anyway, much less with a plastic crank arm, like get out of here, dude. Anyway. So
You're lucky. I just dealt with miserable people all the time. That
well,
all
it's
my
because
memories
you're
of
in the
retail are
East
just dealing
Coast,
with
though.
miserable people.
It's because
Yeah,
you were in the East Coast and people are just angry over there all the time. And in the Midwest, we have a sense of decency most of the time.
no, it's not decency. It's quiet rage. You all hold it when you get home, and then take it on your lutefisk.
Accurate and fair, I suppose.
Take your emotions, Jimmy. Bury them deep.
Yeah, so deep. No one will ever find them until it's too late.
Don't let them come out until you're hitting your wife. Anyway.
Yeah, so I guess I've played a couple of games that I could talk about before we talk about Christmas memories, which was originally going to be the driving thing behind this episode.
And then we got to talk about retail.
Yeah.
And you were like, how are we going to fill time? How are we going to fill time? We don't need topics. Well, guess what, brother? We're 45 minutes in. That's how we roll.
Oh, yes.
Guess what, brother?
For listeners, we were having a little pallbearer fun before the show started recording today, where just originally the idea for this episode, which might have worked out better and been more of a feel-good episode. Tim was going to talk about things, and I was just going to respond to everything with, "Oh yes." We should have stuck with that idea.
Yeah, our R.I.P. pallbearer.
Yeah, aka Percy Pringle.
Is that what he was?
Yeah, I think. Now you got me wondering.
Hold on, Wikipedia article right here. Wikipedia article right here. William Moody. Wow, that was his real name. His real name was William Moody.
Right, but Percy Pringle was a
he had a Percy Pringle was his other character. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Great. I have not dishonored his memory. So anyway, new games that I've been playing. Real quick, Road Redemption is out now on consoles.
Yep.
Which is like a spiritual successor to Road Rash.
Now, is it on all consoles or is it just Switch?
No, as far as I know, it's on everything. I'm pretty sure the trailer I shared was Switch. I think at the end of the trailer, the logos for all of the consoles shows up.
Well, I know it's been on Steam for a long time because I had it. I remember when it was in early like green light status on Steam years ago.
Yeah,
I watched it, never bought it. But I've been and the game is it's grown since I first encountered it, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I remember seeing it in the early access thing too a while ago. I feel like I saw like a Jim Sterling video a year ago or something where he was playing it and liking it. And also, just to answer your question, apparently it's on PS4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, Windows, Mac, Linux, and Wii U.
Wow. I saw the Wii U logo at the end of that trailer. I'm like, are we sure?
Yeah,
that's weird. Like,
well, that's what it says. But I don't have my
system.
Wii U.
The system that sold less than the Sega Saturn, and that's saying something.
Yeah, I liked my Wii U though. You know what? Chat my ass a little bit. I know, like, why take forum stuff? So it didn't really upset me, I guess. But like, I saw a thread on Resetera where somebody was like, "Can we now just admit, please, that the Wii U was a bad system?" And like, my immediate mental response to that headline was, "Fuck off."
And
And
that's let's talk about fanboy culture for a second because you touched on it there.
yeah, okay.
What makes a bad? How is a system bad? Like,
What
there's no
makes you want to
bad
make a
system.
post like that?
Yeah, like if you want to look at the Atari 5200 and be like, that thing had terrible joysticks. Yep,
Hmm.
sure did.
Hmm.
But you know what? If you don't have, if you had a different controller, is it still a bad system? You know,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
like
it's
what
not the
was
Wii
so bad
U's.
about the Wii U?
It just
Nothing.
sold like shit. I mean, I thought it had great games. I owned one for a little while. I was late to the party by,
Half the fucking first party library on the Switch is Wii U releases.
yeah, and it's good shit too, man.
Yeah,
Bayonetta
man.
2's on there.
I
Mario
was just
Kart.
I've been Jones. I was gonna say I've been jonesing for Mario Kart 8. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh, maybe I should get the Switch version. I'm like, what am I doing? I'm like, I got the Wii U still laying around. Like, I'll hook that up and get my fix.
Oh, do you have Mario Kart for Wii U?
Fuck yeah, I do. Both
Yeah.
DLC packs too, baby.
Nice, nice. Yeah, it's a great game. I like it. There's
You know, to know the Wii U is easily hacked these days.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, you can get the homebrew channel on there without any issue. And
Nice.
here's the crazy part. It unlocks the ability to play, excuse me, unlocks the ability to play GameCube games.
Oh,
That
that's
fucking
cool.
thing can play GameCube games.
You can like put the disc in there, or does it have to
Yeah.
be
I think you have to image it, but
yeah, okay.
there's no hardware hacks required. It just plays it.
Wow, that's cool. That is cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
So anyway,
I sold my Wii U to help pay for the Switch. Just like maybe I would say 4 months before the Switch launched.
you're I don't get you, Andrew.
Well, my
Selling,
thinking was
selling
that
stuff on.
here's my thinking. The I think at the time some of the Wii U stuff that I liked was announced for Switch, although I can't remember what exactly. But I was just thinking, like, yeah, I want a handheld that's also a console, right? So like I could hook it up to a TV. That's what this Wii U is, but it's basically without the Fisher Price looking, handheld pad thing.
Right.
Which, when to be fair, when that thing goes, it's going to be a pain in the ass to like, oh, what do I do if I break that? If I break the Wii U pad, then I got to get another one of those. But I
Don't fucking
understand
break it.
they don't sell those. Well, yeah, but then there's also like the issue of, like buttons or sticks or even like shit, man, the battery or something in it could, you know what I mean? Like
All
I don't
right,
know.
fine.
And granted, the Wii U, the Switch is not immune to like battery concerns right now, but it's my hope that the thing's successful enough that figure out a way around that eventually. But anyway,
Well, it'll only be a matter of time for the Wii U is perfectly emulated anyway. So
sure. Oh yeah, so Road Redemption, which brought
yes,
us to the Wii discussion.
yes, the Wii U, yes.
Yeah. I like it. It didn't make a hell of a first impression. I was kind of like, oh yeah, this is definitely like a small budget game. What spurred me into getting it was well, first off, I didn't even know it was out on consoles or that it was even coming. I like Tripwire Interactive, who develop and publish Killing Floor and Killing Floor 2. They have done a fantastic job of supporting those games if you bought those on PC or console. And so I've really admired them for the last like handful of years or so. And when I saw that they were publishing Road Redemption on consoles and stuff, I was like, yeah, okay. I mean they got enough goodwill bank with me that I'm down. So plus I liked Road Rash. I had it on the PlayStation forever ago, and I liked that game. I put a lot of time into it, so I was ready for this. And while it didn't make an immediate wow impression, after about an hour of playing it, I was like, yeah, this is good. I like it. This is what I want. This is Road Rash with a little extra depth. It looks good enough. It plays well on the Switch. The Switch version is the one I got.
Right.
There's no like, from what I can tell, just from an hour of playing or whatever, there's no like frame drops or anything like that. It's just one of those like, I guess it's an indie game. I guess I don't know. It
Yeah,
just
no,
seems like
it would be considered an indie game, yeah, because it didn't come from
yeah,
a AAA publisher, so it
yeah,
was self-published, I believe. Yes.
sure. But yeah, like there's obvious things about it that are evident that it's got a lower budget than like your AAA games and stuff. But like, just as an example, right? There's an event that you come across where you have to just survive. You have to get from point A to point B. You're not necessarily required to kill people or win a race or anything. It's just about surviving, because now it's like, oh, the cops are here. You've been brawling with this other rival biker gang, and the cops have had enough, so they're here to take all of you out, and they've got tasers and stuff. And so it's like, okay, hit people to get nitro and stuff, and keep my health up, because you get rewarded for taking down other bikers with nitro and health, and cash for buying power ups and stuff between races. But really, just keep going. And it's a little bit like it reminded me of Split Second, because it was just like
Yeah. Yeah.
car after car rolling across the pavement in front of you.
And that's a great game, man. That's a great game.
Yeah, and this is by no means, I making that comparison, I don't mean to put the expectation out there that this is going to be of the quality of Split Second. So please don't misunderstand. I just mean that this particular event, with all of these cars constantly flying across the road and exploding and shit, and you got to dodge them, it reminded me of a Split Second event. So, but I mean,
that's a fine comparison to make, though. Like,
yeah.
what a terrible thing.
How many other things are out there like that? Even,
Burnout Revenge.
Sure, but I mean, like, I bet you'd run out of games before you'd run out of fingers counting.
Oh yeah. No, my list begins and ends with Burnout Revenge. So
sure. But in that particular mode on Switch, anyway, I don't know about PS4 or Xbox One. I'd be interested in seeing the difference there. And if they ever have a physical edition, I think I'd be down to buy it if it comes out, through, I don't know, limited run or.
I was just gonna say, it strikes me as the kind of game that limited run would be all over eventually.
Yeah, it certainly is of a really good quality. I think, not to piss on them or anything, because they've got some really great games in their catalog, but I also think they've got some pretty questionable games in their catalog.
Yeah, there's a business aspect to it that's like,
Mm-hmm.
they release what they can talk developers into licensing to them.
Yeah.
So.
And I think Road Redemption would be one of their better games by, far and away, like easily. It's a good quality game. It's just like, oh, this is evident, smaller team, smaller budget and stuff. And to finish my quick example, in that particular mode, the car is going across the road. You literally see them like off in the distance ahead of you, like just spawn into the sky and then tumble down to the pavement and start rolling. And again, I don't know if that's the case in the big boy versions on PS4 and PC and all that and Xbox, but on the Switch, you can kind of see it. It doesn't bother me though. Like, it's fun. It's cool. Like, yeah, man, I've got a lead pipe for knocking the helmet off the other bikers. And then when I knock their helmet off, I can hit them again with the lead pipe and they'll wipe out. But if I want to get real nasty, I can take out my sword and I can decapitate them. And that's kind of badass. And,
interesting thing you just said, which I think is a good reflection on, the modern gamer culture, is you just apologize for a game because it's just fun.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm sorry. Yeah, no. But listen, the game's just really fun. It's like, yeah, what's to apologize for? Of course, that's why you enjoy the game. It's fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool, man. Like, you pick up power-ups along the way. Like, you can pick up pipe bombs that you either sometimes you drop them, like a little timer will pop up when you activate it, and you can count down with it and then try to time it right, so you drop it behind you and it gets the guy right behind you, or like people farther back. You can get like a sticky bomb that you literally just slap on some asshole's back, and then you try to turbo out of there so that you're not next to them when they explode. They've got shotguns. Oh, and this is the best, right? So you remember Terminator 2? Arnold on his motorcycle using the shotgun with one hand.
Yeah. I watched the video.
Yeah, he's just flipping the shotgun over to rack in the new shell and everything. That's what they do in this game, and it looks awesome, It's just fun, man. Like, it reminds me of, like, it makes sense that it's a tripwire game, right? Like, Killing Floor 2 has like a certain attitude about it, right? A certain like kind of humor, and like also badass at the same time. And also, like, hey, this is going to put a smile on your face, right? If you've got this kind of like sense of humor that appreciates a game where people are maiming each other on bikes, right? It felt like, oh yeah, no wonder they published this. It's like perfect for them, So I recommend it. It's $20, which I think you'll get. I think you'll get your money's worth out of it. It also, surprisingly, supports 4-player split screen.
Yeah, I saw that. That's pretty cool for this day and age.
Yeah, like on the Switch version, I'm playing it, and when you finish a race, you get the like post race choose your power ups, spend your cash that you earn kind of thing. And I'm doing all that in the upper left hand corner of the screen, and I'm looking and I notice like, oh, there's a reason for that. It's because while nobody else has joined my game, there's three other spots for three other players on the screen. And in the beginning, I think when you pick your bike, there's um, it shows like the controller and the space for like you hit a button and then you've claimed this space, you're that player, right? So
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Maybe I'm wrong about that four-player thing being split screen because if I remember right, the trailer that we watched says two-player couch co-op, but
I think that's the Switch only. I think the Switch can only support 2 players at once. I think the more powerful systems can do 4.
I wonder if it's like an online thing then for having 4 players on Switch, and I just haven't figured it out yet because I haven't put in enough time. Maybe that's why there's
Possibly,
4.
but that would make a lot of sense having the screen split 4 ways to support online.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems weird. Maybe I just gotta look into that a little bit more. But the spaces are definitely allocated for 4 players.
Oh
So,
yeah, they probably just didn't remake the UI to support the Switch, right? Whereas all the other systems have more than enough juice to run that game 4 players
right,
at once.
right. Yeah, I should check that out and
Listen,
figure it out.
motherfucker, I work in software. I know how these decisions are made.
Yeah.
Anyway, no,
Yeah.
it looks awesome, man. Like it was the first time in a long time I've been tempted to just buy a game. I just bought DOA 5. We can talk about that in a minute, though.
Oh yeah. You'll never shut me up.
You'll never shut me up either with complaints.
Oh
Not
no.
about the game. The game is fine. The game is fun. Uh, anyway, do you want to talk about DOA 5?
Yeah, let's do it since you brought it up. What system did you buy it for?
Xbox One.
Okay,
Because
so that
it was on sale. It was $20.
that's Dead or Alive 5 last round then that you
Correct. Yep. I was appalled at how much DLC I had to manually download one at a time.
Oh, I know that's bullshit. They did not. This game goes back to like what? Well, it came out originally on PS3.
PS3 and
They
Xbox
brought it
360. Yeah.
yeah, they ported it to the current gen systems in I think 2014.
Right. And what drives me crazy
And
about it is that there's still DLC that I don't have access to, and I'm like, I don't know. Like there's over what is it, like 175 pieces of DLC, and there's no like. It really reminds me that like modern consoles need a download all the ones that I paid for.
yeah, that is absolutely. And
Like
that game in particular has it bad because what they do is they every year there's new costume packs for those characters, right? So
exactly.
like it's Christmas 2014 or it's Halloween 2014. So every character gets a Halloween costume, but because this is like the PS3 game that we came out with and we got to make all this shit work, on those old consoles and they're just carrying all that over to the big boy consoles now, like there's a catalog that you have to download to add all these costumes to your game,
Right.
whether you own them or not, so
That's
that you
what
can
killed
see
me.
them.
Yeah.
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 And then like so okay, every single thing that they put out, and they put out a ton of costumes. So there's a catalog for every set. You got to download the catalog. Then you download however many of the costumes you want to buy because you don't want to buy all of them because you will literally spend $1,000 to buy all the DLC.
I added it up. It would have been it would have been about $400 to hit all the DLC.
Okay, yeah, which is nuts. But on the other hand, I appreciate that they supported the game for as long as they did. Because if you're into those costumes, like I was, I didn't buy them all the time, but I look forward to Halloween because those costumes kick ass. And I look forward to just getting like other stuff, right? Like the odd, crossover thing with Tecmo or like some of the other fun ones that they did, right? Like I would buy some of those costumes here and there. I bet at the end of the day, I probably bought like maybe 50 additional costumes for DOA Final Round. And that was over the course of like 4 years, though, right? Because we're here, late 2018. I think the last
20,
one.
yeah, 2020. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the last one I bought would have been probably like a couple months ago, maybe. and it's cool, man. They kept having new stuff come out for 4 years. It's just too bad that like the back end of it is so damn inconvenient for new players like you, or new owners rather like you.
Yeah, it's very annoying. I'll say that much.
Hmm.
So, but quality game. We've talked about it in the show before. It's like, are there some absolutely cringy, pervy shit happening in DOA 5? Absolutely,
Hmm.
but it's a solid fighting game. It's a good fighting game. The whole series, I'll tell you, it's fun. It's fast.
Hmm.
And once you can feel yourself getting better at it. You can feel yourself getting good, as the kids say.
Yeah.
um and the game rewards you for that, and there's something to be said about that. There's something in a lot of modern games I don't think have.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think it's a really accessible game. Um, like I've said on the show before, I adore it. I don't like. I understand like the scandalous costumes and stuff aren't everybody's thing, and that's fine if they're not your thing. But I
I mean,
do.
the nice thing is that you don't have to choose those costumes, right? Like, I forget the name of the
Right.
character, but she's a new character to DOA 5. She's a kickboxer. um
Mia.
Mia. I really enjoy playing as her. Are there some absolutely cringy, pervy costumes? Oh, absolutely. But there's also some, like, hey, she's wearing like regular clothes. Like, here she is in jeans and a hoodie. You know,
Right.
pick that and enjoy the game.
Yeah.
You don't have to pick the fucking thigh high leather boots and the thong costume.
And actually, to the game's credit, I think that the costumes are actually sensitive to the nature of the character's personality. So, like Mia, for example, the kickboxer, she's one of the more conservative ones. She doesn't have like the black thong with the thigh high fishnet tights and stuff. That's
Right.
reserved
Yeah.
for Helena.
Oh
One
my
of her
god.
Halloween ones is just ridiculous. It's like
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, that costume. Like, I
that
was like,
costume
I don't think
rules.
that thong couldn't exist in a physical world.
Yeah, I like that stuff sometimes, right? Like I mean, I don't love every decision in DOA. I'm one of those people. I do not like Marie Rose. I wish she wasn't in the game because I see her and I just think that she looks too much like a child. And I don't have a
Oh
problem with
yeah.
children.
Oh man, that was so creep, right? Like, the first
Yeah,
time I fought her and she was wearing like this weird, like, leather.
optical Vita thing.
Yeah, and I was like, oh no, this is creep.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, I don't like it. I think that she has a place in a fighting game for sure, but not one where you've got women in like some of these just completely scandalous outfits and stuff. Like I just,
yeah.
yeah, no, it's
Like put her in a King of Fighters game where she would be like, maybe
yeah,
hopefully not as gross.
sure, sure. I mean, like the whole thing about DOA 2, and this dates back to the very first one, the boob bouncing, right? Like
Ah,
the titillation is a part of that game's core.
right.
And
Yeah.
so when I see people complain and say like, "Oh, I wish DOA just didn't have that in it," I'm like, "Well, there's Tekken, there's other games, there's Virtua Fighter. Like DOA is that kind of thing, and it always has been. And it'll be interesting to see in DOA 6 now because I know that they want to try and chase a little bit more respectability, and that they want to be a part of the Evo crowd, right? They want to see the brand elevated, I
Yeah.
guess. And I support their decision to do that, which I guess is weird for me to say if I'm also trying to argue at the same time like
Well,
that's
no. I know what you're saying. It's like, I mean, and good on them, right? Because like Sega has more or less abandoned Virtua Fighter. Like,
right.
we got like a Mercy flush release of Virtua Fighter 5 Final Showdown
Yeah,
years ago. But they've been completely silent since.
yeah, no, absolutely.
So I'm
I,
glad somebody's kind of keeping that 3-button 3D fighting game spirit alive.
and thank God too, man. Like they said to Sega, hey, if you're not using these Virtua Fighter characters, can we bring them
Right.
over?
I know. And there's something about I was just going to say too, like, for the first time ever, like, Sarah from Virtual Fighter, I was like, she's not supposed to be sexy, but they
Right.
totally play her off. Like, I was like, wow, this character model is actually, like, it's not. And I don't want to, when I say gross, like, I'm not saying like she was like, ew, she's mannish. No, it's just Virtual Fighters never prioritized making their females uh like super attractive. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
never like realistic body. well, air quote realistic body proportions.
Right.
Uh, but it's like seeing Sarah in a DOA game. It's like, oh, so she's supposed to be like supermodel crazy hot now. Okay, I get
Right.
it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. She's one
yeah.
of the more gorgeous character models in my opinion. I really like her too. I like playing as her. I'm really glad that she's in it. I What a great game, man! It was, I mean, like you can play the Virtua Fighter characters. You get your DOA cast. You got Mai from King of Fighters and all
I
that in
refuse
there.
to pay for her. I refuse to pay for her.
Oh, I did. It's money well spent, homeboy. Do it. Do it. She's great. I really like her. She has good music too. I like the music that they made for her. Very good. I love DOA. I'm interested in picking up six eventually next year. I don't know if I'll be down at launch or whatever. I bought DOA 5 at launch, and like seriously, they released the game like 3 more times after that. So I might just hang tight for a bit.
Right. Yeah, I don't blame you.
But yeah, I fully support what they want to do, taking the brand in a new direction, I guess. Or it's still. I mean, you can't have Kasumi in the game and have her classic outfit and have it completely shed the titillation, because it's just
Right. Yeah, she's a ninja that's fighting in like, well, basically nothing.
right, right. I get it. I feel like the people who try to shame DOA players, I guess, like just even if you are one of those people who's like really really into like the scandalous pervy stuff, like, hey man, that's what it's there for. It's there for you. Like it's
Right.
the only game that really really like leans hard into that stuff. So why shouldn't there be a space where a game does that kind of thing, in my opinion? Like they don't all have to be the same, on the same level and chasing the same audience and stuff. And
I'd rather they not be. I mean, I think
right.
DOA, as I said, is it's the last holdout of a very particular style of 3D fighting game, and
Mhm.
and not from like the gross like boob standpoint. I just mean like the gameplay wise.
Sure, yeah, the
I
three
mean,
button style.
Dead or Alive started as what was widely considered to be a knockoff of Virtua Fighter. In fact,
Mhm.
Tecmo licensed the motion capture libraries to create DOA from Sega, and to this day they still do.
Oh, that's
Um,
cool.
and they even use Sega's Model 2 arcade hardware to make the first Dead or Alive game. Um, so I'm happy to see that still alive. I wish Sega would get off their ass and make a new Virtua Fighter game. Could you
Oh,
imagine a next fucking generation Virtua Fighter game?
I don't, there was a time when I would have said I don't know if I trust Sega to do it anymore, but they just put out Valkyria Chronicles 4 and it's fantastic. So if they can bring that series back and do it right, after what they put that franchise through, there's hope for Virtua Fighter. So
Well,
yeah,
I'm trying to think. Was Yu Suzuki involved with Virtua Fighter 5?
I don't believe so.
Yeah. So that would be my only thing, is that if Yu Suzuki, let me look it up really quick. I'm trying to think, like, what's he on Virtua Fighter 5? Let's see here. Games developed.
I guess that was a
Uh
PS2 title.
Virtua Fighter 5?
Yeah.
No, that was Virtua Fighter 4. No,
Oh,
he
I'm getting
had
the box
nothing to
here
do
mixed up.
with VF5.
Yeah,
That was
okay.
not him at all.
And that
So,
game's great.
yeah, it really is. It's absolutely fantastic. Backwards compatible on Xbox One. Couldn't recommend it high enough.
Yeah, it looks good
Um,
there too.
yeah. So yeah, Sega, by all means, go make a new Virtua Fighter game, please.
I
You
know.
don't need Yu Suzuki. He's good. He's off doing Shenmue. He's good. He's fine.
Right. There's certainly a market for it too, man. I mean, like I feel like if anything, look at the success that Namco Bandai's having with Tekken. I know I think it's too early to call for Soul Calibur as far as like being successful, but like obviously Street Fighter has an audience, right? Like there are enough fighting games this gen to come out to prove that the market's been there
Yeah.
to support all of them. I
Well,
think
part of me gets afraid. We should have a fighting game episode. We should do a fighting game episode.
yeah.
But part of me is afraid that like the ridiculous failures of Capcom in the form of Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, Street Fighter 5 to a certain extent.
Yeah.
I think that has the industry largely spooked.
Sure. If they can't see what Capcom did wrong there, though, like then that's a whole separate
Right.
set of concerns. Like
The,
especially
the only
now.
well, the only
It's more
company that,
out.
that I don't think did get spooked by it was Arc System Works. But at the same time, I'm also like, I'm really tired of playing fucking Blaze Blue. And
Yeah.
can we just move on with it? Like, yeah, I was real hyped when Guilty Gear XR'd was announced, but we're 5 revisions in, guys.
Oh,
Time
I
to
know.
let's move on. Let's move on.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm with you, man. Virtua Fighter 6. Let's make it happen.
Speaking of moving on, we should actually get to the topic of the show. We have yet to talk about any of them.
Yeah, I got one more thing. I want to talk about Red Dead 2 real quick,
Okay.
just because we had talked about that in a previous show, and I think we were both like, I don't think I'm going to get it. I caved. I got it. Um,
I am not shocked. I am shocked, Pikachu.
your mouth open right now.
Yeah.
Ah. Yeah, it's good. It's good. All of the just before the game hit, the review embargo lifted, and everybody and their mom was like falling over themselves to give it a 10 out of 10. It seems like, and it's so silly to like get hung up on video game review stuff because it doesn't matter. But like, I do take notice. I can't help it. Like, I take notice when a game comes out and it starts getting showered with tens because I'm always looking for that next game to come out that's going to be to me like what Ocarina of Time was, or like The Last of Us, right? Like that game that like, oh wow, this really does elevate, the video games in general, right?
The
Like,
art form.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, you want to be there for it when that moment comes, and so you kind of I do take notice when those reviews hit, and I I do not get those tens. I really don't. It's a good game. It's a really good game. Like there is a great story there. The world that they've built is super detailed in a lot of really cool ways that you don't see in very many games, if any other games in some ways, right? I think like the closest thing might be like Assassin's Creed's newer entries and stuff, just based off what I've seen. Um, but yeah, like it's definitely like a technical marvel. It's an achievement in a lot of ways. But if you've played Rockstar games in the past, there's a lot of ways where it hasn't evolved at all, hardly, from like the old Grand Theft Auto games in the PS2 days. It's just like weird design choices that are like really counterintuitive and they don't make sense and they make the game harder to play. And I have a friend who was arguing with me about this, and he swears up and down that my problem is that I don't want to take my time with the game and be slow. And I promise you that's not it. I got the game knowing that it is a very slow burn, that like there will be times when you do a mission and you end up 2 towns away from where your home base is, and you have no fast travel options. So you just have to ride your horseback the entire way, right? And some people will try to like max that shit out where your horse is just at top speed the entire way and you're just, oh, I ran into a tree because I was just trying to go too fast. Like, I've been so careful to avoid all that kind of mindset, right? Like, I'm just like, yeah, okay, we'll go back to camp now, and if I run into something along the way that in terms of like finding something interesting, I'll stop and I'll explore that, right? Like, I just don't do anything in a hurry. Be careful, take my time, do things that make sense, right? Like, don't ride my horse through the middle of a town at full speed because I'll hit somebody and then I'll get a bounty on me, right? Like, that's all no brainer stuff for me. And I kind of role play these games anyway. Um, so like if I'm trying to role play, I obviously don't want to do stuff that I wouldn't do or stuff that would kind of like take me out of it. But the game just has some poor design decisions in it, I think, that kind of get in the way at times. And sometimes I really get like fed up with it. Like there's been more than one time where I've been playing the game and I've been like, as soon as I finish the story mode, I'm selling this shit. I'm done with this game. I'm selling the hell out of this thing. And I finished it some time ago and I managed to hang on to it because I do still want to play around in that world. And now that the online is out, I'm interested in seeing that this week too. So,
Oh yeah, I forgot that just came out.
yeah, yeah. I don't even have access to it yet because I didn't buy the game early enough, apparently. But I think tomorrow they open it up for the plebs like me.
What a weird statement to say here in 2018.
I know. But yeah, if you're interested in an old west simulator game, um, this is it, man. Like that's where you're gonna get it. If you like movies like Tombstone or Hostiles, a more recent one, right? Like and you're looking for that kind of old west flavor. This is like the only place you're gonna find it. Really, there's not really that many old west games out.
Yeah, there really are. I mean, I remember for a long time people talked about that as like, oh, there's no cowboy games. It's like, well, there's Outlaws on the PC that like 5 people played from
Sure.
LucasArts. But yeah, it was a short list.
Yeah, it's not like it's not like the military shooter. There's not not a ton of those out there. But the story's really good in Red Dead 2. I like it a lot. The characters are very likable. You will care about them. There are shocking moments that you won't see coming. And that's what drove me through the game. Really, is just I wanted to see what was going to happen next. And I also some of the role playing stuff was fun. I did venture off and do side missions from time to time, and some of them can be really, really interesting. And there's always, the open world lure of like, what might I find that like nobody else has seen yet, kind of thing. That a lot of open world games can have. That's all there in this game too. So yeah, I like it. If I did like, I don't know, it's hard to put a number on it, right? I want to like dock points or whatever for the dumb design decisions that they made and things like that. But and just like not loving the shooting in the game that much, it's really I don't know, man. It makes I remember when I played PUBG on Xbox for the first time. That seemed cumbersome, and now the shooting in Red Dead 2, even though it's much simpler than like PUBG, it makes PUBG feel like a buttery smooth experience in comparison. I don't know. Yeah, you got to use like your slow mo all the time in the game, and if you're not using the slow mo, it's just such a pain in the ass. Uh, yeah, constantly running out of stuff to keep your slow mo meter built up enough to use it, and I don't know. I don't want to waste time bitching about the game. I think there's probably a lot of other people out there who have complained about that stuff, and I might do a video on my channel sometime about it, so I'll have time to dive into my beefs with it there. But the bottom line is that it's fun and it's a good game, and if you like westerns, have at it, Haas.
It's just not, oh my OMG, the greatest game ever made.
No, it's not that watershed moment that I was kind of hoping for. Graphically, like I have it for Xbox One X, right? And I don't know that I've ever seen a game like look this good. Like Forza Horizon 4 looks pretty amazing. But they do some stuff with like atmosphere and fog in Red Dead 2 that you can't do in Forza because it's just not that kind of game.
Right.
Right? Like I'm in the bayou at, 1 a.m. and it is misty as all hell, and there's like lanterns burning off in the distance, and it just feels like, you know what I mean? It feels like I'm walking among the dead, and it's crazy, right? Like going through the woods at night, same thing, like the moon up in the sky. You just never know what's out there. You hear noises and stuff. Could be a bear, could be some crazy hillbilly, uh, and it all just, it looks so gorgeous. It really does. I guess to the game's credit, when I said technical marvel, that's what I mean. Like the graphics are just like, wow. But the rest of the game has to kind of match, and in a lot of ways it doesn't stack up, in my opinion. But it's, hey, it's a good game. I think you'll definitely get your money's worth. That's one thing I will say quick here. You buy the game for $60 and there's no more shit to buy. There's no,
Right.
buy the deluxe edition so you can get this added chapter or whatever, buy this shit, buy that shit. Like, I think it took me about 40 to 50 hours to beat the campaign. And, I passed up on a lot of stuff, but it was just because it's sticking with, the interest of doing my role playing and stuff. Like sometimes I was on a mission and it didn't make sense to like veer off and do some other thing. Like I had this goal in mind. That's what I wanted to do. Right. But it's certainly the kind of game where you can go back and replay it and go find stuff that you missed. I mean, who knows, man? If I don't get fed up with the things that bug me about it, I could keep this game and end up playing it for another 40 to 50 hours. And that's not even with the online stuff, So yeah, it's good. And I'm done. I'm finally done. All right, so it's time to talk about some Christmas stuff, Christmas related games, some memories that we might have from back in the day or whatever, because it is a season and all that, right?
Yeah. Well, and you first asked me, like, oh, we can talk about Christmas memories, and I'm like, I'm trying to think of like what video game memories I have that are tied to holidays. And at first I was like, I don't really have any. Like I don't think I'm gonna have much to add. And then I was like, oh shit, oh wait a minute. Oh I have this. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you get the old memory cranking, and then oh yeah, things come up.
Yeah.
Uh,
Anyway.
I guess I'll kick us off. My childhood and stuff, right? Like getting like the NES, the Super Nintendo, Genesis, Sega CD, and all that. I don't think any of that fell around Christmas time.
Yep. Same here.
And then I pretty much like started getting consoles at launch after that, with the PlayStation onward. And none of those really fell, of course, around Christmas time either. Um, oh, the one console that I did get though for Christmas was the Atari Jaguar. That year, I guess it would have been like '93, maybe. Uh, yeah, I guess it would have been '93.
Yeah. That'd be about right. That was when it came out, yeah.
Yeah, okay. We got the Jaguar, and my dad had it in his closet for some time before Christmas came along. I think we had like a couple weeks to go before Christmas, and then he ended up putting it under the tree. And he was working. I was like kind of a latchkey kid, right? I'd come home from school, house would be empty because my dad would be working, evenings, that kind of thing. He had shift work for a number of years. Um, and on the nights when he wasn't home, when I would get home from school, I would literally just like carefully go get a knife to break
You were a
the
snooper?
seal.
I was a snooper too. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I totally snooped, and I cracked open the seal on that Jaguar box, pulled everything out, hooked it up. I was playing Alien versus
You
Predator.
fucking asshole. I never
Little
went that
shit.
far. That's ballsy. Holy cow.
Oh, dude, yeah, I hooked up the whole thing, man. I was playing it for like a week before Christmas, I think, and then yeah, Christmas came and I got it, and it was awesome, man. We could have a whole show where we talk about the Jaguar some other time, but I was a fan of it at the time. It was my first exposure to first-person shooters really at home, because we didn't have a PC. So like I played Doom on the Jaguar, I played Wolfenstein 3D and Alien versus Predator, and those were totally where it was at for me for a little while.
Yeah.
And I think that Christmas, AVP and Wolfenstein, I had both of those. I think Doom came later, if memory serves. And that was a great Christmas, man. Those were two stellar first-person shooters back then. Even though AVP kind of got mixed reviews, I remember EGM gave it like a 6 out of 10, I think, from one of the guys, and might have had like some sevens in there, but yeah, they had complaints that like didn't ring true with me because I didn't have Doom as a reference, right?
Right.
So it seemed great to me, and I was a big fan of Predator, and I liked Alien as well. So having those licenses there, and the great sound work that they did with the some of the voices and whispering and stuff like that, that was all great. Guns all sounded like they did in the movies. I was blown away.
Yeah,
And
it's
then
a
that
game a lot of people are only now discovering, which is funny because that's why Jaguar prices right now are out of control.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy for a system that gets shit on as much as the Jaguar does. It sure is expensive if you want to go check one of those out for yourself and own it in the games and stuff. So that's why I welcome when they have there's somebody who's working on a flash cart for one, and they're pretty far along in the
Yeah.
process. I don't think
Yep.
it'll be too much longer before that thing is probably ready for market. So
Well, and
that's
even
good.
even more than that, there's a new kid in the block called it's a project called Mister. And what it is, it's FPGA implementations of various consoles on FPGA development kits you can buy for like $50.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I just heard somebody talking about this. I think it might have been
Yeah.
Jeff Gersman was talking about this. He got a
Yep.
Mister.
And that project's picking up steam like crazy, man. Like the PC Engine FPGA kit or core just came out today,
What
and
is
it's like
FPGA? Fully
uh,
programmable?
field programmable gate array. So
Okay.
um, think of it. So if an emulator is a CPU or a computer in this case, emulating a console to play a game than an F. I'm sorry if I'm trying to think of like the best way to put it. So that's emulation, and FPGA is best described as hardware simulation. So it's less concerned with emulating the system in order to play the game, and more concerned with being a absolutely like down to the resistor transistor recreation of the original hardware, right? So games running on it is a side effect of them accurately emulating the hardware inside of the FPGA. So you take an FPGA and you say, I am a 68,000 CPU and I have 140,000 transistors, and this is my transistor map, and I have this much RAM available to me, and I do this in the video. And you program the gate array to do that. And then for all intents and purposes, the gate array is that.
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
Yeah. So then feed it a ROM, and the thing says like, I am a Sega Genesis. Sure. I can play this ROM.
Yeah. You know? Okay.
So it's not without its fair share of controversy, but it is considered to be the far superior and next evolution in emulation.
Very cool. That's good. Yeah, I like that you put that in terms I can understand, because I got a little lost when I heard Gersman talking about it, honestly.
Well, that's what I do.
Yeah. Well, some guys get really lost in the weeds on that stuff, or it's like if you've ever worked in like an office setting and you have like meetings where people are using a lot of acronyms and stuff, and maybe you're on a different team that doesn't know all the acronyms or something, and you walk in and you're like, what the hell are they talking about? Like, that's what it feels like sometimes.
Every goddamn day.
Yeah. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see, when like Jaguar stuff just becomes more accessible to people. Because right now, like, I think some of what works against it is there are like YouTubers, for example, that I've seen playing an emulated version of a Jaguar game, and it runs piss poor, right? Yeah, like it's not all emulated greatly or anything like that. Like I literally watched a video where a guy was playing an emulation of AVP, and there were these big black squares that would just pop up on the screen and stuff, right? Like it was shitty. And he was like, oh, look at how crappy this is. I'm like, it's because you're not playing the real fucking thing. Yeah,
it's Jaguar stars.
Yeah. Little turd.
You're playing a pirated ROM on an emulator written by somebody who like is a fan.
Yeah. And they didn't nail it, Yeah. So anyway, the rest of my memory, that same year, that was, I think, I think that was the New Year's Eve that I had spent just playing Wolfenstein 3D through the new year, and I might have talked about that in my Wolfenstein 3D video on my YouTube channel. But I think my dad and I were playing that game that year through New Year's, and then he went out to go hang out in the living room, and I was still playing the game until like 2 a.m. It was like the best thing. I was like, dude, some people like this sounds so lame, but I guess I was like 13 or 14 at the time. So it cut me some slack. But yeah, some people are like going to their New Year's parties and stuff. I fucking hardcore gamered my way through Wolfenstein into the new year.
Fuck socialization.
Right.
Yeah. Sadly, I can relate to that. So
yeah,
you're in good company.
Oh, good. Well, that's why we're doing this show together then, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Huh? Cut from the same cloth, you and I. The
weirdly
other
enough,
memory...
I always say, like, you and I had weirdly parallel video game experiences in our childhood. I think the only deviation is that, well, I mean, you owned the oddball systems, but so did I. I just owned different oddball systems.
Yeah.
Right?
But we were both familiar with each other's oddball systems.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, I had a TurboGrafx 16. I had a Turbo Duo. You had a fucking Jaguar. You had a 3DO, But yeah, I mean, I would always like, yeah. Anyway, sorry. Yes.
No, totally okay. I think man, I want to spend a whole episode where we talk about video game magazines and stuff. Because did you read those the way that I did?
Oh, obsessively. Actually, you know, it's funny. I have been unpacking stuff because I had a lot of my stuff still like in boxes. I never unpacked it, and I had old video game magazines. I found an old issue of Game Fan from 1993. I was reading through.
Oh,
Found another
baby.
one from '94. I was reading through.
Nice.
Found an old issue of Wizard magazine, the Guide to Comics. I was
Nice.
reading. And what's extra funny is that one of my studio mates, one of his first comics that kind of broke him into the industry is being advertised in Wizard magazine in 1997. And I kind of want to take him to and be like, haha, you're old. But I won't do that. But anyway, such a dick.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
great. I had a similar experience when I went home last to visit my dad. When I first moved out to the West Coast from Wisconsin, I left a bunch of shit at my dad's house. And some of the stuff that didn't make it out here was my video game magazines. And I had forgotten how much of that I had. I brought back with me a ton of issues of PSM, the unofficial PlayStation magazine. And I'd been doing that on my channel for a little while, so I guess you probably knew about those already. But I also found a bunch of game players magazines
Oh
and
yeah.
ultra game players.
Yep.
And yeah, man, when I was in high school, I used to live for game players and ultra game players. It was like the most irreverent, like funny video gaming magazine. Did you read that one?
Ultra game players?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah.
Diehard Game Fan was always my big one.
I liked that one too. I liked it for the pictures. They had so many screenshots in that magazine.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's do maybe our next one. We should talk about video game magazines or something.
Yeah, I can tell, and I can tell the story of how in 2010 I inadvertently got associated with Game Fan, the resurgence of Game Fan magazines from the original publisher.
Oh yeah.
And how I discovered that he is a raging piece of shit and a scam artist.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I want to hear about all that. We definitely are going to do an episode on gaming magazines.
Scathing. Yeah.
Definitely. Okay. Yeah. I'll keep this moving along here so that we don't take too much longer. I know we got to cover your stuff, and I'll probably ask you questions.
My stuff will go fast. It's easy.
Okay. The only other thing is I got Twisted Metal 2 one year for Christmas from my uncle. And the only reason that that's noteworthy is because it was around the time that Tickle Me Elmo was like a hot thing, I guess. Unless it was No, it was it wasn't Beanie Babies. It was Tickle Me Elmo. I'm pretty certain. But the story he told me is he went to a Toys R Us to buy Twisted Metal 2 for me. And apparently the UPS guy was there when he went for it. And there were people who were convinced that the UPS truck had Tickle Me Elmos on it. And so they had, according to him, they had swarmed the UPS truck, and it had gotten so out of control that the UPS driver left his truck as they were rocking it back and forth, pushing on it.
What the fuck?
And he ran inside the store, and the cops were called.
That's crazy, but
Yeah.
completely believable, which is weird.
Right? Yeah, this would have been Chicago too, by the way. So this is one like some podunk town. This is like
Right.
a city where there could have been like a considerable population looking for those things and
Yeah.
all flocking to that one store.
It's so weird. Like people don't remember. There's a whole generation of kids growing up right now that are going to have no memory of when parents were willing to fucking murder each other for whatever toy was hot.
Right.
I remember when I was a kid, Cabbage Patch Kids were the fucking hot thing.
Yeah.
And my sister wanted one so bad, and she got one. I don't know how my parents arranged it. I don't know who they had to off. I don't know what shallow graves they had to dig. But my sister got a Cabbage Patch that year. And the same thing with fucking Teddy Ruxpin.
Yeah.
The same thing with you get into Tickle Me Elmo's a good one.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's wild, man. Like I think the only thing I've heard about in recent memory that was like a big deal was people were looking for Hatchimals, but I didn't hear about like people, throwing punches.
I don't even know what a Hatchimal is.
I guess it's like a stuffed animal that comes out of like an egg that can only hatch.
Oh yeah.
Because after it comes out, the egg can't be like put back together again.
Right. Huh. Toys are stupid.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But that's all I got. This will be quick. The last thing I wanted to talk about, and I want to fully turn it over to you, is every year I enjoy the Killing Floor seasonal events.
You're really into that game, aren't you?
Dude, it's so good. Uh, the Twisted Christmas event that they do is just one of my favorite things, man. Like they reskin all the enemies so they look like, fucked up elves or reindeer or like, half melted snowmen, right? And you'll get these great new stages like Santa's Workshop where there's like banners hanging on the wall that say like a lazy elf is a dead elf, right? Like that kind of stuff. But it's all to like classic Christmas music, right? Like the Nutcracker and stuff like you hear playing in the background, and like all the Christmas classic music that you're used to hearing. Like they put that in there for the soundtrack, and you're just like slow-mo shotgun decapitating mutated fucked up elves coming at you with candy cane knives and stuff with that music in the background. It's delightful. I love it. I love it. They're doing it again this year. So if you got Killing Floor 2 on PS4 or Xbox or PC, jump in. It should be starting any moment now. I guess this year's event is in beta at the moment. So any moment now.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's good times, man. I love it. I love it. Okay.
I'm not following you. I guess I just never. I mean, it's a first person shooter, right?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
It's very arcadey though. It's not like
I'm listening.
At all. Yeah, no, it is very arcadey. It's like aim down sights is a total snap. Like if you land a headshot, a lot of the time, like there's a high chance that it'll go into like like slow motion for everybody too. So if you're playing online with people, everybody's screen slows down, and that allows them to get headshots. And sometimes you can like chain a few headshots in a row where the slow mo just kind of keeps going and going. It's great. I've got video of me playing Killing Floor 2 on my channel. If you're interested in seeing what that's like, I did the summer event, I think last year, and put it on the channel, which was like a fucked up carnival kind of theme thing with like, what you'd expect, right? Rob Zombie would have probably loved it had he known.
Well, I'm just checking my Steam library. I do not have it in my Steam library. I figured it was one of my. God damn, I have close to 500 games in my Steam library. Oh,
damn, son,
that's a sickness. Anyway. Yeah.
It is your time. It is your turn for me to stop.
I've had a Steam account since 2004. I worked in the games industry for a hot moment, got a bunch of free games. So in my defense, there's that. But the rest of it, yeah, it's all me. So anyway. Yeah, so my Christmas stuff. We'll start with the first one, right? So if anyone who's listened to the show before, you may know this. I am afflicted with a disease I like to call Neo Geo. And the earliest stages of Neo Geo sickness really took hold when I first played Samurai Showdown in the arcades. And I became absolutely obsessed with that game, every aspect of it. And I'm an art nerd. We've covered that in the show as well. And I was very much in love with the character designs in the game as well, and I would actually draw them constantly. And I actually remember I did this beautiful like watercolor and airbrush piece of Hanzo Hattori from the game. Mm-hmm. And the Sega Genesis version of the game had come out, and I really, really wanted it. And I remember that was one of the games I actually did get for Christmas. Had to be in 93, must be 93 or 94.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, that I got that game for Christmas. I played the shit out of it. And it was shitty because like I didn't grow up with anybody who wanted to play fighting games with me, right? I didn't have any friends that were into fighting games. Mortal Kombat 2 for a hot minute, people were into that. But Samurai Showdown, forget about it. So to this day, like I that's why I was really happy when you and I would sit down and play Neo Geo. It's like, oh my God, somebody else wants to actually fucking play video games with me. That's great.
Oh, I know. So. I feel the same way. Yeah, it looks like it came out in 94 on the Genesis.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so yeah, Christmas in 94. So I would have been 15. But yeah, played the shit out of it. Poured over the manual. And and that's one of those games that Die Hard or the Game Fan magazine did a huge spread on. And it just blew my mind how good it looked. Mm-hmm. You go back to 1994 and it's like looking at the Genesis version, it's like, oh my God, like this looks so fucking good. And looking at it now that I have multiple Neo Geos in my house, where I have like Samurai Showdown on cartridge format like 3 times over now.
Right.
Does it hold a candle? Surprisingly, yes. Actually, it's not too bad. Is it arcade perfect? Not even close.
Sure.
But it's still pretty damn good. I every once in a while I fire up the Genesis version and play it. Even though I have the far superior, actual Neo Geo hooked up to the same television set as my Genesis. I will still fire up the Genesis version just for those little nostalgic tingles. So
Nice.
yeah,
Nice. That's cool. I should check that out sometime.
yeah. The other one for me is Virtua Fighter 2 for the Saturn. So I think we talked about previously on the show. I was an early adopter for the Saturn. Like it was supposed to come out in September of 1995. Sega surprised everybody and released it in May. I didn't get it in May because I was saving up money to buy it for my birthday. Well, the deal I had worked out with my mom was that I would save up as much money as I could, and she would make up the difference and pay for it. But pretty much it was costing me my birthday and my Christmas gifts of that year.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So like if I had saved up like $200, which I think is about what I saved up, she would pay the difference. But she was like, you're not getting any gifts for Christmas. You're not getting any gifts for your birthday because I'm going to pay the difference on this Sega Saturn. I'm like, I don't care. It's fine. Do it. You know,
Right.
but the caveat was I had to wait until my birthday to get the Saturn. And I'll tell you, as a young guy, I mean, and again, this was 95, so I was 15 at the time because my birthday's in October. It was killing me having to wait, knowing that like I'd given her my money, I knew she bought it. It's sitting there, it's waiting, and I did the same snooping thing as well. Like I would I was like looking around the house trying to find it. Fun fact with that, she was by this time in my mother's I was the second child. She had she'd picked up a few tricks over the years and
Sure.
realized that that Saturn wasn't safe in the house. So it ended up at my grandmother's house waiting until my birthday. Because I
Sure.
remember on my birthday she drove to my grandmother's house, came home, had the Saturn. I was like, oh my God, it's the greatest day ever. So that was my birthday gift that I half paid for. But getting into Virtua Fighter 2, so why that was part of such a big surprise was, so my brother, I have a younger brother, and he's about 5 years younger than I am, and he, so when I was so when I was 15, he was 10, and that first Christmas for the Saturn, there was a handful of really just absolutely jaw-dropping games. The Saturn was off to a rough start. It was already getting its ass just beat by the PlayStation.
Mm-hmm.
But that Christmas in 95, we got Virtua Fighter 2 and Sega Rally for that system. And Christmas came around, and I was like, yep, not getting anything, don't even care. I remember waking up early that morning and just being like, I'm just gonna look and play Sega Saturn. I was playing Virtua Fighter or whatever other game I had managed to like save up money for at the time.
Yeah.
And I remember my mom being like, oh no, you have gifts out here too. I'm like, what? You said you weren't going to get me anything, like a dumb fucking kid. And yeah, I ended up getting Virtua Fighter 2 for the Sega Saturn that year. My brother got Sega Rally because he was really into racing games.
Sure.
And we played the shit out of those. And
Nice.
to this day, that copy of Virtua Fighter 2 still sits on my shelf. I'm looking at it right now.
Excellent.
Yeah. That copy of Samurai Showdown also sits on my shelf. I have that to this day as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I love that. When you got something, it's like it hits you how old it is. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, damn, I've been carrying this thing around through moves and stuff, and it's been sitting on like different shelves
Yeah.
for
Well,
this
I
many
mean,
years.
and it's funny, when you keep stuff like that, at first you keep it just out of like, well, I just have this, right?
Yeah.
And then after a certain amount of time, you look at that and it's not just because you enjoy the game. It's not just because of basic nostalgia. At some point, I think it becomes honestly, it's a representation of a snapshot of a time in your life, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And I think, in the case of like Samurai Showdown, Virtua Fighter 2, here I am, 20, 25 years later, telling the stories of when I got these games, and I still have them, right?
Yeah.
So it's crazy, like that. It's we are of the generation where so much of our memories and emotions about things are wrapped up in physical goods, right?
Yeah.
Um, then it's I in a lot of ways it's easy to condemn that, but I think in a lot of ways we're very fortunate as a generation to be able to have that. So
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. Like, yeah, you
sorry,
can
I got
say
super fucking deep there for a second.
no, no. You can make the EU consumerism, argument, sure, but also at the same time, like, yeah, man, I love that. I had a memory of playing Twisted Metal 2 one Christmas or something, and like that disc is just sitting right over there, and like there are kids who are playing Fortnite this Christmas or whatever because they just
Yeah,
got like their new Switch, and like one day Fortnite's gonna go away.
right. That's the thing about those games is that they're just not going to exist someday. You're
Yeah.
going to turn the switch off and it's gone, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, it is a bummer. I haven't played World of Warcraft in years now, probably like 10 years, honestly. But I will be sad when they shut that down, and I'll probably want to have another one last like fling with it before they like announce that they're going to close down the servers for good.
Yeah.
Just because, like, while I don't, it's not my thing anymore. It's like, man, I did spend a lot of time there. I wouldn't mind like seeing Stormwind again and hearing the music and stuff, and yeah, just kind of makes me a little sad to think that there will be like a day when like that world goes away and all these other games that are like that go away. PUBG, which is something I love and play a lot of now, that'll disappear and there will be no way to play it. That's just a bummer.
And meanwhile, my copy of Virtua Fighter 2, bought for me in Christmas '95, I can take
Hanging
it off
in
the
there.
shelf I can take that off the shelf at any time. I can look at the foil cover. One of only two Saturn games released with a foil embossed cover.
I did not know
I
that.
can, yeah, I can look at it's that and Sega Rally. I can look at that and I can look at the disc. I can,
Hmm.
it's there. It exists in the world, and it's a totem of a time past.
Yeah, that is for sure.
I got really deep again. I'm sorry.
I love it. Last thing I wanted to ask you about before we close out here,
Yeah,
and this will like prep us for another show where we talk about magazines and stuff. But back in the '90s, there was Imagine Publishing, and they were responsible for the magazines I mentioned earlier, Game Players, which became Ultra Game Players.
yeah.
But they also published Next Generation magazine, which was one of my favorite magazines.
And EGM. They were EGM as well.
Were they? I don't think they were EGM
Uh,
because those would have been all like the same family, and they definitely were like no,
I'm,
Ziff Davis was EGM, dude.
all right. You're right. I'm looking at Imagine Publishing and just taking a look. Yeah. Okay. Yep. Sorry. I'm a big liar.
Oh my gosh, you didn't know that? You're off the show.
Eh.
I guess I'm just more of a hardcore gamer than you. As I push up my glasses.
These days, yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, Next Generation had an issue that came out with a disc included with it, and much to my surprise, it was a Sega Saturn only disc. I was a PlayStation owner at the time, which we talked about, and this game I didn't have anywhere to play it, but it was a copy of Christmas Nights.
Yeah.
And there was a kid at my high school who did have a Saturn, so I gave it to him, and I guess he must have enjoyed it. I never never heard him talk about it, but yeah, Christmas Nights is now definitely like a collector's item that if
Yeah,
you
very, very valuable title these days. So I mean, the funny
yeah.
thing about Christmas Nights is that it was largely a demo disc.
Hmm.
Because if you play a Christmas Nights disc anywhere outside of the holidays, and I'm talking about like late November to early January, it's just a Nights demo disc.
Seriously?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
yeah,
So if you turn it on in like January, there's no Christmas stuff. It's just regular ass nights because it knows the calendar and all that.
correct. Yeah,
Wow, I never knew that.
the regular game of Nights knows the dates as well. So if you play it on January 1st, so New Year's, if you play it on New Year's Eve, you get a special stage and special music. Same thing with Christmas. You get some Christmas stuff, but the Christmas Nights disc was uniquely meant to, like, during the Christmas season, you get the Christmas themes, you get everything.
Really?
Yeah,
And the full game doesn't have that stuff. It's just this
does
demo that has it.
does not just this demo. Yeah,
Wow, that's super interesting. I never knew that.
yeah, it's cool stuff. Um, so Christmas Nights to me I played it through Blockbuster. Blockbuster Video had them, and you could rent them. I rented it, never took it back, and that's the copy I still have.
Sure.
And it has the Blockbuster "Do not remove this" sticker still on it. It still has BBV written in green marker on it.
Oh my gosh.
Well loved.
It's like twice the relic now.
Yeah, and I honestly don't remember. I didn't have a Blockbuster account at the time, so how the hell did I get that? Anyway, I have my copy of Christmas Nights is all marked up and shitty from Blockbuster. But yeah, that's how I played it, and yeah, I mean it's fascinating. It's a fascinating time capsule of the days of physical media and all that, and all those kinds of things. It doesn't hurt that Nights just happens to be one of my absolute. I don't want to say my favorite game of all time. Nights is not one of my favorite games of all time, but I will say that the experience of playing Nights is one of my happiest video game memories of all time.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like Mario Galaxy is one of my absolute favorite games of all time, but also has the privilege of being one of my absolute happiest video game memories, right? But yeah, Christmas Nights, it's a fine game. It's okay. It's a time trial game when you really get down to it. There's not a lot of game actually even there. But there is something about firing that up and having the audio. And I've always been a bigger music person than I am graphics in games, even to this day.
Sure.
I think a moving and just absolutely engaging soundtrack can make or break a game, much more so than graphics. And Nights has all of that in spades. It wasn't the most beautiful game ever made. It was up against Mario 64 and Crash Bandicoot at the time.
Yeah.
But audio-wise, those two games had absolutely nothing on Nights.
Yeah, I loved Crash Bandicoot, but admittedly, that is a third place title right there in terms of stacking up the soundtracks.
And Mario 64 obviously has some absolutely amazing musical tracks in it. The underwater theme, for God's sake, is one of the most beautiful pieces of music that's ever been written. Period. For a commercial product, I suppose. But Nights, I don't know. It's just just a lot of happy thoughts associated with that game. Really, really kind of grabbed you. Same thing with Samurai Showdown in the Genesis, right? We're going to talk about those kind of games. It's like, is Samurai Showdown on the Genesis one of my favorite games? Absolutely not. Not even top 50, right? Now Samurai Showdown on the Neo Geo is a different story, but I have so many happy memories and happy thoughts associated with Samurai Showdown on the Genesis that it always rises to the top in that regard, right?
Yeah.
There will always be a better game, right? There will always be a game that is your top game, and for whatever reasons, it could be like, oh, the gameplay was fantastic, the graphics were amazing, yada yada yada. But those games that just happen to come along at a time in your life where you were able to create an emotional connection, even if it had nothing to do with the game itself. I think those are the most important aspects.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Man, as you say that, like memories of exactly that kind of situation are flooding into my brain.
Yeah.
When we moved out here to the West Coast, my wife moved out here 2 weeks after accepting a job, so I stayed back I came out here with her and got her, help her move in and stuff, but I was only out here for like a week, and then I had to go back to Wisconsin and finish out our lease in our apartment and stuff, and like sell our furniture and get ready to move myself out, right? And when I was back home in Wisconsin and she was out here, I missed her terribly. And she was having a rough time out here. We had a not a great apartment at the time, and there were issues going on with that. And she was feeling lonely, and my heart went out to her. And I felt really helpless, um, for not being able to comfort her aside from phone calls and stuff, right? And at that time, the first Guacamelee had come out, and I was playing Guacamelee on my Vita all the time, and there was just something about, like, Juan's quest to get his beloved woman back and all that. Like, it was so perfect for what I was going through in my life. It just resonated with me in like a really hard way.
Yeah.
And so that time of like playing, Guacamelee, it's not like my happiest time or anything like that necessarily, but like it's a time when I felt like I had like this bond with that game that I can't really kind of put into words necessarily.
Well, you touch on an interesting point, and boy, I am sorry to everybody that listens that we're getting deep.
Sorry for making an interesting podcast.
Yeah, sorry for being adult about all this.
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said about having emotional entanglement with moments in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people hear something like that and they immediately think like, oh, it must just be the happy memories. But at the same time, even the most melancholy or even sad memories, you can be wistful for those, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's okay, because those are the times in your life where an emotional impact was made on you,
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, I think back when I moved from the West Coast back to Minnesota. I moved back 2-3 months before my wife did, and I drove back across halfway across the country by myself. And I look back on that 3-day drive. I was by myself. I was facing a ton of unknowns. It was a very scary time. Who the hell knew what was going to happen? And I was moving under very sad and kind of tragic circumstances from a family standpoint.
Sure.
And but to me, those 3 days are probably some of my fondest memories, even though they're kind of tinged with like the sadness and the melancholy that was kind of around me at that time. But they're still very fond memories. Isn't that weird?
Sure.
No,
yeah. No,
I think that's the kind of thing that I think that only that age and with just a touch of wisdom, I think gives to you.
Sure. No, yeah. I mean, on one hand, yeah, it's weird, but on the other hand, it's like so understandable. I'm absolutely. I'm just like listening to you say all that, and I'm just nodding. I'm just sitting here. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. So anyway, fucking video games, huh?
Yeah. I think maybe that's a good spot for us to put a cork in it and get me to shut up for another, I don't know, however many weeks until we do the next one of these.
It'll be soon. We'll do it soon.
Yeah.
We got to talk about what do you want to talk about?
Video game magazines, I thought might make for a good topic.
Yeah, let's do video game magazines. That's for sure.
Just like the impact that they had on us back then, and watching them
pre-internet days, man.
Yeah, we could talk about strategy guides too, especially with Prima Games shutting down early next year. Now
you're taking that a lot harder than I am. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't own a ton of strategy guides. I bet I've got like maybe a dozen. But I just kind of liked having those things were out there. Like I definitely was of the mindset of like, what do I need one of those for? I've got the internet. But when I got the news that they were shutting down, I was kind of looking back at my small collection of guides and thinking like, these have like art in them and like really cool maps and stuff. Like these are nice. Like,
somebody made those. Somebody crafted that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I will mourn them when they're gone, despite not having been like a huge, buyer. But yeah, that'll be a topic for another show with the magazines and stuff, because it all kind of runs together in that greater discussion of the bygone era of print media in some respects.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in that regard, yeah, I mean, another episode of the Melancholy podcast has come to a close. The two old fuckers talking about shit that don't matter podcast. That's what this should be called.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell the folks where they can find you, Andrew?
Yeah, so come and find me on YouTube. You can search for Bare Metal Uno, or I think the URL is always going to be Uno Il Nino, all smashed together, one word. And you can see the stuff that I've mentioned periodically here in this episode.
Yeah.
Videos and stuff.
Very, very remarkable name. Yes.
I know. I'm gonna like that name's gonna just follow me and haunt me forever. And it's like I can't change it. You know, what am I gonna do?
Right.
Yeah.
As for me, you can find me on Twitter or Instagram at Tim Wilsie, Wilsie. I'm not ashamed of my last name. I use it. It's my marketing. Yeah. So I mean, if you're into comic books or art or any of that fun stuff, that's where I post most of my work in that regard. Also start another podcast, which I'll have more news on that in the near future.
What?
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry I'm cheating on you. I don't know. I never talk about it on the show, nothing. And I the three people that listen probably don't care, but yeah, no, the World Monster headquarters that I'm a member of here in Minneapolis. We're starting a podcast, and I think the first episode we had like 10 people on, 8 to 10. I can't remember.
Oh, wow.
Crazy, I know. And we're looking forward to it. It's gonna be good, man. We're gonna have some good stories. I mean, we've got some legitimately famous people at our studio that I know. So I'm looking forward to having conversations with them and talking about the business and everything else. So it'll be fun.
Well, you have to let me know when that is available because
I'll spam.
I'll
spam the shit out of my social media accounts. So don't worry.
Good. I want to know what it's like to hear you talk without somebody constantly going, "Oh, and one more thing. Oh, and one more thing. Oh, and I just want to talk about this one thing real quick."
Well, and it won't be video games either, right? It'll be like really serious, like well, I mean, about as serious as the topic of the comic book industry gets.
Right.
But yeah, good stuff. So
awesome.
All right.
Well, yeah. Thanks for doing this with me again.
Absolutely.
Thanks everybody for listening.
And we'll catch you later, melancholy sad kids.